Joining us now to talk cycling is our Aussies Abroad cycling expert, Matt Keenan. And Matt, there's been action, races, all sorts of stuff happening all over the world. Where would you like to begin?
Well, where can we start is a really good question. We've had the Giro D'Italia on, the Bink Bank Tour has just finished, the men's and the women's Liege-Bastogne-Liege. We've had races over in Italy for the under-23s. Where do we start? Why don't we start in Italy with the Giro D'Italia, given that it's the second big grand tour of the season?
Well, let's talk us through it. We're two stages in at this stage, as you and I talk on a Monday afternoon. The early going, there's 18 Aussies in the race, which is fantastic to see.
Yeah, it's huge to see 18 Australians in the race. When we saw just 2 Australians starting the Tour de France, I got a lot of messages asking the question, where's Australian cycling at? Is it panic stations? No, it's not. Because of those 2 Australians, 2 stage wins and 3rd place overall. But there's more to cycling than just the Tour de France. And the Giro d'Italia, that's the second biggest race on the calendar when it comes to the tours. And there's 18 Aussies on the start line. That's a record for Australia. And we have the second most participants in the race. There's 176 riders overall. Italy have the most participants, not surprisingly, as an Italian race. And then Australia is ahead of France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany, powerhouses like Spain as well of world cycling. We're in a really good spot. Stage 1, the Australians, we were hoping that Rowan Dennis might have been a contender for the opening time trial, but he had the worst of the conditions riding early. It was really windy, and at one point he was almost blown off his bike. It was so windy, hitting speeds of almost 100 kilometres per hour. But his teammate, Filippo Ganna, the current world time trial champion, he won the stage. He took the pink jersey, the Maglia Rosa, and he's the current race leader. Overnight, we had a stage that suited Michael Matthews, the rider from Canberra, affectionately known as Bling. I really thought he was a big chance to get the win. Got his timing ever so slightly wrong, and it was an Italian stage winner. So the Italians have won the first 2 stages. They'll be pretty happy. It was Diego Ulissi who got the stage victory, and the ever flamboyant Peter Sagan was in 2nd spot. But the next stage, Monday night Australian time, it goes up Mount Etna. There will be an eruption in the race for the pink jersey. Filippo Ganna will not be the leader, I don't think, at the end of the stage. Perhaps his teammate, Geraint Thomas, who was the winner of the Tour de France in 2018, will assume the overall race lead. And really early on in the piece, in a 3-week race, we're already going to see a significant shake-up as to who can win overall.
So Michael Matthews led the peloton home in stage 2. He's the best placed Aussie in 11th spot. Then a couple of younger Aussies also around that 1 minute behind the leader mark in Ben O'Connor and Chris Harper.
Yeah, well, I really like Chris Harper's prospects in this race of playing a starring role as a domestic. It sounds counterintuitive. He's a helper, but he's going to be a starring role. He can be really important in the high mountains, and we'll get to see him up Mount Etna and what sort of support he can offer to Steven Kruijswijk, who's a rider who last year finished in 3rd place at the Tour de France. So Chris Harper's got a really important role to play. Ben O'Connor is a guy who a couple of years ago, in his first appearance in this race, he was about 8th, 9th or 10th, somewhere around about there, going into the 3rd week and was looking really good. He crashed heavily and broke his collarbone and hasn't quite been back at the same level since. And I've really got my fingers crossed that, you know, form comes and goes, but talent never leaves you. And Ben O'Connor has got plenty of it. And I'm hoping that we can see a big result from Ben throughout the next 3 weeks of racing.
Speaking of talent, Grace Brown showed hers at Liège.
Oh, she was brilliant. So Liege-Bastogne-Liege, it's one of the most difficult one-day races on the calendar. And Grace Brown found herself in a leading group that included one of the greatest cyclists of all time, Marianne Vos. And out in front, trying to win the race, and eventually she did, was Lizzie Deignan, a former world champion herself. And it was Grace Brown with about 15 kilometres to go, a 1 minute and 4 second deficit. She took off on her own to see if she could get across to Lizzie Deignan. At the finish line, 9 seconds was the gap. She just ran out of road, and Grace Brown finished in 2nd position. Lizzie Deignan went out the winner. But for Grace Brown, this will be a really nice story. It's only her 2nd season in the professional peloton, but I can recall Grace Brown about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. She was at a mass participation event in Western Australia, the Tour of Margaret River, and Marianne Vos was there. She got a photo with Marianne Vos. It was one of those moments where, can I get a photo with you? And then last night, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, she was riding away from Marianne Vos. So Grace Brown, she didn't win, but she certainly won 2nd place. It was a huge performance.
Just ran out of road, as you mentioned. The fact that so much of the closing stages was downhill, I guess, made it even harder to try and run down a leader.
Is somewhat, yes, But in many respects, maybe not, because Grace Brown has done a lot of work on her bike handling skills. She was slightly late to the sport. She was a good national level middle distance runner. So the element that she has struggled with somewhat has been some of the bike handling side of things. Not anymore. She's done a lot of work in that area, and she was actually better than Lizzie Dagnan on the wet, slippery roads into Liège. And she made up ground on the corners as much as she did on the flatter sections, because Grace Brown is a fantastic time trialer. She was fifth at the World Championships just a week ago. So there's a lot to like about that performance from Grace Brown. I think that performance will pretty much secure her a spot for the Tokyo Olympics next year.
Let's stay in Liège for a moment. They say timing's everything, and the world champ found out the hard way.
Yeah, the world champ, Julian Alaphilippe, he got the arms up a little too soon. He was convinced he was going to win, and it looked like he was about to get across the finish line in first position. So with maybe 5 metres to go, arms are up in the air. He's looking down at the jersey of the world champion. And then Primož Roglič, who was the heartbreak story of the Tour de France, where he finished in second position, the story of resilience of 2020, he kept on ploughing on, and in a photo finish, as Alaphilippe had his arms up, it was Roglič with his head down and throwing the bike to the line, and he snatched the victory. And then you saw the shake of the head. Alaphilippe couldn't believe it. He knows that photo is going to be replayed for the rest of his career, for the rest of his life, in fact. But it didn't matter in the end, because Julian Alaphilippe, he ended up getting relegated from second place even down to last position within his group, which was fifth place, because of a big move that he made. We call it a hook in cycling. He went from the right-hand side of the road, hard against the barriers, all the way across to the middle of the road, because the young Swiss star, Mark Hirschi, was on the charge to get the better of him. He ended up pulling his foot out because of the violent movement by Julian Alaphilippe. The commissaires, the race officials, they made the right decision by relegating Julian Alaphilippe. Congratulations to Primož Roglič for winning, but Mark Hirschi, he would have won that race if it wasn't for the move of Julian Alaphilippe. The good news for us, Jason, in regards to that, is the next time they race, there'll be a little bit of spice in the air.
Exactly right. Now, from Liège, let's go back to Italy. There was an under-23 race, the Piccolo Lombardia.
Yeah, it's one of the most important races for the under-23s. And it's a race that is similar to Liege-Bastogne-Liege. They have the Giro Lombardia is known as the race of the falling leaves. It's probably the second most important race in Italy. And they have an under-23 version as well. It is full of hills. And an Aussie, Harry Sweeny, he's got a cool name as well, managed to pick up the victory. And this is his last opportunity racing in this category, because next year he steps up into the World Tour, into the top division of the sport, and he'll be riding with the Lotto Soudal team, the team of Caleb Ewan, the team where Robbie McEwen used to ride. Kettle Evans spent a few seasons there as well. So he managed to get that victory. He already signed the contract with Lotto Soudal, but if he hadn't, there would have been plenty of others coming to get his signature to make sure that they locked him away. What it does do for him, it gives him plenty of confidence that he can compete with all the guys that have his generation. And we're already seeing the youngsters really win the biggest races on the planet anyway. Plus, the team that he signed for, they'll look at that result and they'll say, okay, we've absolutely made the right call here. And if he does have a hiccup early in his first season with that team, they'll look back at this result and they say, let's be patient, let's not rush it. The kid's good. He's really good.
And joining us now, the man himself, Harry Sweeny. Harry, congratulations.
Thank you very much, guys. I'm really excited to be on the call, and yeah, I can't quite believe it, to be honest.
Well, Harry, I was commentating Liège-Bastogne-Liege at the time, and once I finished calling that race for SBS, I looked at my phone expecting to get messages about Julian Alaphilippe, celebrating too soon, but I was getting messages about Harry Sweeny winning Piccolo Lombardia. I didn't get to see it. You won solo. How did you do it?
So early on in the race, actually, the circuit took us by surprise a little bit. Generally in Lombardia, the initial circuits are quite easy, but yesterday they changed the circuits, and there was quite a difficult climb early on, and a group of about 40 riders went away, more like a split in the peloton really, and it went away and everyone was working well together, and then a few of the teams had 2, 3, even 4 riders, but I was just in there by myself. And then at the bottom of Fazelo, we had about 1 minute gap to the peloton, and then the group of 40 turned into about 8 riders by the top, and I was feeling quite good. And then we hit the next really steep climb. The name of it blows my mind, but yeah, we hit the next steep one, and then there was only 5 guys left. And then in the descent, there was a roundabout that I took on the inside and everyone else took on the outside. And I didn't really mean to attack, but I looked back and I had a gap of maybe 5 meters or something. And I just thought now is as good a time as any. There was only 5 guys left, and I just went full gas. And there was about 15K left at that time and one climb. And yeah, I just held on until the finish, really.
What an awesome problem to have. Jason, I've never had this problem, going the wrong side of the roundabout and just, having the strategy of riding faster than everybody else to the finish line. Harry, Jason and I spoke earlier on about you signing a 2-year contract now with Lotto Soudal. And I was of the view that with this win now, that if you do have any problems at the start of next season, it could be injury, it could be a crash, the team can look back at this result and know that they've got lots of confidence and they can be really patient with you. It must be a real mind easer for you as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, in the past, I haven't really been one for big results myself. But my journey to the World Tour has more really been in a support role and a couple results here and there, and just sort of always being there. So yeah, to sign a contract and then have a big result like this, and even a result that's not really, how do you say it? It's not really descriptive of the type of rider I am. I'm like a heavy classics guy, but I'm not really meant to win races like this. So just to have that on the Palmares, I think it really sort of will ease the transition into the World Tour a bit mentally, and yeah, obviously for the confidence of the team in me and myself in the team. Yeah.
Personally, I look at you long term and I think of races like the Tour of Flanders, for example, more so than a Lombardia or a Liege-Bastogne-Liege.
Yeah. Well, I think personally, I couldn't ask for anything more. So whatever happens the rest of the year, and even in the first year of my World Tour as a Neo-Pro, whatever happens, I think it'll be a bonus for me.
This year you've been living in Belgium. I want to know, as a Queenslander, how do you go living in Belgium, particularly early and late in the season? And what's the plan for next year for where you'll be located?
Yeah, well, for me, Belgium has a bit of a special place. It's the first country in Europe I ever went to, and the first country in Europe that I ever raced in. So a lot of people have a bit of a dislike for Belgium, but the Belgian people, and I just get along with them really well. I don't know how or why, because I have terrible Dutch or Flemish, but I think it's more of a mental thing to overcome that it's not Australia, you're not at the beach, you're not in Girona. It's once you overcome that and try and integrate a little bit into the culture and the people, I think it's really sort of eased the transition. And this year for me was really about trying to integrate with the team. And sort of just envision how I would turn pro with the team if that was to happen. So to live in Belgium was a big part of that process, and it was a conscious decision to try and make a big effort to show that I wanted to go the distance with the team. But for next year as well, I'll stay in Belgium. I have a really good setup there with the apartment on the outskirts of Antwerp, and I think for me as a Neo-Pro, the most important thing will be to have the support of the team and all the staff around me versus have an incredible social life. So as much as I'd love to move and have friends all around me in Girona or even East or something, I think Belgium for me next year will be the best place, just because of, as you mentioned, if anything does happen, there's people there that know me, they know how to support me. And I think, it's just more mentally easing.
I think it's a great decision, and having success on the bike is far more fun than a good social life anyway. You can have a good social life when you're retired. That can come much later on. In terms of this team, you're following the footsteps on this team of Australians that have ridden for this team. Let's go through them. Robbie McEwen, Henk Vogels, Nick Gates, Cadella Evans, Adam Hansen, Caleb Ewan. It is a long list of Australians who have ridden with this team. You've got some big shoes to fill, Harry.
I do have some very big shoes to fill. I said to Robbie, he sent me a message after I signed the contract, and I just said I really hope that I can continue the Australian heritage there. But Yeah, hopefully this result goes a little way, but I think it's a little bit calm before the storm almost, before I sort of really step up and into the hard graft.
So what happens in the off-season? Because of the coronavirus, do you come home, quarantine for a while and have the off-season in Australia, or what's the process from here?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit unknown for me at the moment, partially because I'm in the process of doing my residency for next year. So that's one issue. And then the next problem is quarantine. It's not really something that I want to do for my off-season. I think I would prefer to spend the money on a holiday or something, or I need to buy a car as well. But I think the only chance of me coming back to Australia this year will be if Tour Down Under and Cadell's go ahead. So a little bit fingers crossed for that, because I think personally it'd be a dream to start my pro career in Australia. I have a lot of family in Adelaide as well, so that'd be incredible. But if all else fails, what will most likely happen is I'll stay in Belgium for probably the next month or so to finish my residency, and then I'll go seek some sunnier weather, I think.
Well, for completely selfish reasons, I hope you make it back to Australia and we get to see you at the TDU and also at Cadell's race. Congratulations on a brilliant performance in Lombardia, and good luck for the next 2 seasons. I can't wait to watch you in action.
Thank you for following it. It means a lot to get messages from guys like you. It's just, to win the race is something, and then to see the scale of the achievement was sort of only really sunk in from the messages. But yeah, it's incredible. Thank you so much.
Well, I can assure you Australia was really excited. As I said at the start, I got more messages about you than Alaphilippe celebrating too soon at Liege.
Yeah, oh, what can I say?
You came across from triathlon to cycling in 2017 after a series of injuries. So it's been a pretty short ride for you, hasn't it? But a tough one. You got hit by a car when you're at Mitchelton Scott. You've had knee surgery. So what did it mean to you yesterday when you actually crossed the line and had this win?
It just makes me tingle just thinking about it. I had such a tough time in my first 2 years of under 23, like you said. Before I even started, I had 2 knee surgeries, hit by a car, and then again in my second year, hit by a car, rolled the tubular, concussion, broken wrist, you name it, I had it basically. And in my head, it was, I sort of thought that this was just what cycling was, and then it wasn't until I got out of that environment. Not to say Mitchelton was at fault. I think it was a combination of riding for other riders that were greater than me in Lucas Hamilton and Storer and Hindley and Rob Stannard. And I sort of got stuck in a rhythm of going to a race, doing my job, pulling out, day done. And then, to move into a role like this, it's difficult for me to learn to try and win again. And today, I woke up, I was thinking about when I was in the team in 2018 when Stannard won, and I was having a laugh with my parents that when Rob actually crossed the finish line to win, I was sat at the gelati shop at the finish line eating some gelati and just watching him. So, I was just speechless.
It's the morning after the night before. How did you sleep?
Yeah, I didn't sleep too well. I think I've had an hour or 2 hours maximum. It's I think the adrenaline's still kicking in a little bit, and it's hard for me to sort of grasp the scale of the result. I don't have a history of massive results, so any moment that I have like this, it's really special. So yeah, it's to share it with the team like Lotto Soudal and all the guys on the team that I've been riding for and supporting the Giro and everything. Yeah, it's incredible.
Matty, it's a great insight into something that you and I have talked about a number of times, in that in cycling so often you can just be there working for other people. So when you get the chance to actually win for yourself, it's really special, isn't it?
Well, it's a team sport that is won by individuals, and it's a big call in an under-23 team to make the sacrifice for others, because you're dreaming of becoming a professional, but you're helping others make that leap. A similar story to Harry is that of Simon Clark. Simon Clark spent the early part of his career helping Wes Salzberger, sacrificed himself. He saw Wes get a pro contract. He helped Matt Goss Matt Goss got a pro contract. And Simon had to make that switch to win a couple of races so a team would have belief in him. And he's now had an incredibly long career. He's still going. Those other guys are retired. Harry's had these hurdles to go through. I love the story about the gelato watching Rob Stannard win. That will get a run in commentary at some stage, I can assure you, when we see Harry in a break, no doubt. And riding with the Lotto Soudal team, it does have that great Australian heritage. I think you're in the right spot, Harry, with that team. And you spoke about the Belgium culture and versus being in Girona or Nice, which looks prettier on a postcard. But the Belgium culture, particularly amongst the Flemish-speaking part of the country, it's actually really similar to that working class underdog mentality of Australians. They bond together really well. It's different language, but it's the same intent. And I think it's a fantastic area, a fantastic team for Harry to start his pro career in.
I think you're dead on there. It's hopefully this winter I can put in a bit of hard graft and get myself a Dutch tutor and really try and integrate a bit more. But yeah, I just love that, the working class grit, and even more the grit of the weather, the wet cobbles. It's a bit of a contrast. I just came from a race in Holland, just pouring rain all day, dirt roads, cobbles. And it really just makes me smile, even if you don't win the race, just to be there and to be ripping it with the teammates. Yes, I just love it.
Yeah, and that's part of what made Robbie McEwen so successful. So he comes from the Gold Coast. You know, he's accustomed to going for every bike ride without leg warmers and without arm warmers. Then he went to Belgium. The other guys were in the south of France that were having a good time and so on. But he got there, he learnt the language, he learnt the tricky roads, he learned how to ride in the rain and the cobblestones, and he wasn't going chasing the sun, he was chasing results. And it's going to be difficult to learn the language because the Belgians and the Dutch in particular, they speak great English. So it's an easy out. But if they see that you're making an effort, they'll make an extra effort with you. And that puts money in the goodwill bank. It goes a long way.
Yeah, for sure. I think the language, it's definitely not a hurdle for me at the moment, but just to try and ensure that I can integrate more outside of cycling, I think is the biggest thing for me, which is lacking, is the social life. So, yeah, I need to make a big effort there, because within the team, obviously the language of the team is still English. So I would really like to make an effort just so I can expand my life a little bit into Belgium and really sort of make it a home for me, instead of racing and then sitting inside and then saying the odd dunk you to the checkout chick.
Well, one thing you'll learn really quickly anywhere you race is you learn all the swear words, and it doesn't matter what the word is, but you know by the tone. And as soon as you hear behind you in a kermis in Belgium, "Godverdomme jongen," you know exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah, not wrong.
Do I have to bleep that out, Matty?
No, that'll be fine.
That's all right.
That's a safe one.
Harry, thanks so much for your time, mate. Congratulations on your success, and we really look forward to following you on the road ahead.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.